Hey Matt, how you doing?
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me today.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for joining us. You are on the Career Evangelist Podcast. So let me ask you this. What inspired you to become a tech founder?
I'm just a problem solver. I like meeting with other people, and I think that's what software engineering used to be. Like you'd meet with people, understand their problem, figure out, okay, how do I engineer a solution for this, build a product to do this thing, like whatever the thing is, right? And so I'm just naturally a problem solver. And I became an entrepreneur just by talking to people about their problems, and we ended up solving a problem that we could go and sell to a bunch of people and started a business. Like that wasn't really my goal. It was just sitting down with somebody and trying to help them solve their problems.
Okay, problem solving. I love that. That's very important in my home field as well. So you have founded five different companies. I'm just curious, what do you look for when you decide or when you are deciding something new, a new company that you want to start?
Most people fall in love with the problem. They're like, oh, I'd love to build a business or whatever to solve a specific problem, which I think it is important that you're passionate about whatever the problem is. I think is really important. But most importantly, the key to business is figuring out how do I grow this thing? Like, how do I sell it? How do I find customers? And a lot of times people like build the business and think they'll figure that out later. But I think that's equally as important. Like if there's not a need for your product or you don't know how to find the potential customers, like it's like you could open the best restaurant in the world, but if nobody around you likes to eat that kind of food, like it just doesn't really matter. Like there's got to be a demand. You got to be able to find the demand.
So demand is crucial, and I couldn't agree more. That's where you generate the interest in the business. That's how you be able to make income. Now let's talk about your background. What specifically, in your experience, would you say is important for any entrepreneur out there? Maybe in terms of skills, what do they need to develop so that they can go out there, launch their business, and make it profitable?
Well, so most entrepreneurs tend to be the personality that is more sales oriented. Let's just be honest. Most entrepreneurs are more salespeople. And that's not me. I'm more of an engineering background. But anybody who becomes entrepreneur learns very quickly that the sales part of it is the most important. Kind of like we just discussed a second ago, right? Like finding customers is is the most important thing. And even as a software engineer, like I always tell other software engineers, if you don't think the customer is very important, like go start a business tomorrow and then you'll figure out very quickly like the code's not near as important anymore as finding a customer that will buy the code, right? Like, so I think the sales part of it is, of course, super important, but ultimately it comes down to solving problems. Like, and you don't necessarily have to be the world's best salesperson, an entrepreneur, but you got to be good at solving problems. You got to be able to talk to people and understand their problems, diagnose, what they need and help them solve that. And you don't have to be like the world's best salesperson, but you got to be really good at listening. You got to be able to have empathy and understanding of who the customer is and how you can help them. I mean, it's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And you mentioned software, I hear you talk about coding, and I'm thinking about AI, with the advancement in technology that we have today. What role or how should entrepreneurs, how should they leverage the power of AI in helping them to maybe think about or brainstorm about the potential of their business in terms of finding customers, in terms of sales, and maybe even in terms of solving crucial problem in the society today.
So I think with any kind of technology wave, things go through a big hype cycle, right? Be it mobile or things moving to the cloud, all these things like blockchain. Like blockchain comes out and everybody thinks like we'll use blockchain to solve every problem there is. And eventually we figure out what are the winners and losers. Like, okay, where did it actually make sense to use blockchain? And then all these other things we tried that didn't work. And I say that because that's kind of where we're at with AI. Like everybody's trying to solve every problem there is with AI. Like how can AI fix and improve and do everything? And we're still figuring out like what is AI actually good at versus people tried to use AI to solve all these things, but it just didn't work very well. And then we figured out over time, like, no, we don't use AI for this anymore. We tried, didn't work. So I think we're still very much in the middle of that. Um, for software engineering, AI can be helpful for boosting some productivity. It can be really, really helpful for rapid prototyping. Like if you're an entrepreneur and you want to build some software for something, that sort of prototyping phase, it's amazing at that. I mean, it's also amazing if you want to write a book or create any kind of content or any of that. It's really great at that sort of first phase of like, instead of starting with like a blank piece of paper and you don't know where to start, it's
Yeah.
super amazing at that high level of like, okay, I can ask it some questions. It can interview me, and then we get a good starting point somewhere. Like it's really, really good at that kind of higher level stuff. But that doesn't mean it's really good at the detail and the nuance and the weeds. And just like writing a book, like I used it to help write my book, Product Driven. But what's unique about the book is my unique viewpoints and insights, which AI doesn't know. AI doesn't know my unique, insights. Now AI can help me curate that. It could ask me for those, it could interview me. Like, there's so many things you can use it to do. But ultimately, what really makes you successful in everything you do is going to be your unique insights and input and all that. Where AI is always going to be like the most generic version of everything from my experience, unless you really, really train AI very, specially on things.
Now, you've talked a lot about building teams that think like owners. Why is that important, Matt?
It's the only way to scale, right? Like, one of the big struggles as an entrepreneur, any kind of business leader or executive, is a lot of times you end up being the bottleneck. You end up being the hero. You have to make all the decisions. You feel like maybe you even have to micromanage people and run around and fix their mistakes all day. And the only way to solve that is to delegate and create owners. Like hire people that you can trust, give them ownership of things to some degree, let them learn, let them fail a little bit, but you trust them to figure it out and move forward. And that's ultimately the only way to scale. And at some point in time in my career, I had to figure out that the most productive thing I could do was make other people more productive, right? Like I can't do everything. Like I only scale so far. I know I had 5 kids, so I've cloned myself, but they're not ready yet. Like my clones are not ready yet. So I've got to manage other people and get them to be owners, delegate.
So trust is very important. That's what I'm hearing from you. Now, I was also thinking, what role does maybe the company culture play right there? Do you need some training to help people to develop that mindset of thinking like an owner? What do you say to that?
So I'm 44 years old. I've, been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, and never in a million years would I have thought that like culture was something I would think about. And then I ended up writing a book, Product Driven, which is largely actually about culture. It's about creating the right culture for a software engineering and product team to build a team that you can delegate to and build ownership and all that kind of stuff. What we're talking about. Actually, that's what my book is about creating that culture. And I say that because it's weird because before I never would have thought that way because I thought like I was the hero and the guy I could figure it all out. Whatever we need to do, I'll figure it out. I'll build the thing. We'll do the thing. We'll go. We'll fight. We'll win. I'll figure it all out. But then yeah, eventually you hit that bottleneck, right? Like, and you realize like, man, the only way to really scale is to build the right culture. And what's hard about culture is probably best described as like, what does it feel like to work for you? That's
Mm,
really the culture. What does it feel like to your employees when they work for you? The attitude you have, the things you say, the way you treat them, the things you reward, the things you recognize, like it's all the little details about like, well, what is it like when you work for your boss? And it's all those little things you have to think about when you talk to people. And the key to, like we talked earlier about delegating and ownership, is like you really want to thank people and reward them when they bring ideas, they bring suggestions, they challenge ideas. Those are all ways that they're showing courage and ownership of their work, right? Versus if you just shut them down all the time and you disagree with what they say and you don't want to hear what their ideas, like you're gonna create a culture of people that are just order takers, and
yeah.
you're not going to scale, you're not going to delegate, right? So yeah, culture is critical. And I say that because it's so weird because throughout my career, I never thought I would have been a culture guy, but all of a sudden I realized culture is the key.
Yeah, culture, I think is very important. And I like the way you define it. How do people feel working with you? And that's
Yeah,
culture.
that's
Absolutely.
the culture.
I think that makes sense. So now let's think about engineering managers that are people that are growing into leadership. Maybe for these leaders, what are some maybe advice that you give them as they continue to build people that think like owners and help empower these people so that they can also continue to grow?
I think the hardest part specifically for software engineers that advance in their career and become engineering managers is most software engineers are highly logical people, very, very logical people. And I have this conversation with my 16-year-old a lot. He's a lot like me, has same faults that I had. And I tell him, it's like, hey, you're getting straight A's, you're super smart. But when it comes to emotional intelligence, you're like at zero. Like you are failing all over the place. Like you don't care about other people. You don't like dealing with other people. You have no empathy for anybody else. Those sort of soft skills and emotional intelligence are really the difference when you become a manager and leader because especially in software engineering, you go from managing like highly logical things like code and platforms and system and so it's like all extremely logical, right? But then you go to managing other people, and now you're just managing other people's emotions,
Yeah. So
right?
you need emotional intelligence.
It's a whole different world. It's a different skill set. And I'll be honest, I spent most of my 20s trying to figure out like why is everybody else stupid? All these people I work with drive me crazy. Like why don't they do things the way that I do? Why don't they see things the way that I see them? Like it took a long time for me to realize, just like my 16-year-old is like, everybody's different. Not everybody thinks like you do. Everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. Like you got to understand, their strengths and weaknesses and figure out how to tap into those. But that's the emotional intelligence part that I did not have. I did not have in my 20s. And I keep telling my 16-year-old, it's like, this is the thing you're going to have to work on. And I think it's a big struggle for a lot of engineering managers because our persona tends to be extremely logical
Yeah.
and not so good at this emotional part of it.
So let's take a step back, maybe look at yourself 20 years back. What advice would you give to someone that is just starting out today, especially in this tech space? And the reason why I'm asking this, I know that the tech space will continue to be disrupted. It's very dynamic, things are changing every day. So, what
Yeah.
will you give them?
So what I think applies best to this is really it's always thinking about why. And as a software engineer, it starts with asking it's thinking about like, well, why am I doing this? Like why are we building whatever we're building? But even when it comes to managing other people, it's why. It's like why are people thinking what they're thinking? Why is somebody asking me what they're asking me right now? Why isn't their work done? Why? Like it's thinking about the why instead of just jumping to conclusions, right? And I think that was the thing I struggled with in my 20s is I would just very quickly jump to conclusions or I think about like this is how I would have done this thing, so why didn't you do it the way that I would have done it and why didn't you just naturally do it that way? And it took me a long time to, stop and realize, well, again, everybody does things differently and I have to understand the why behind it. I think a good analogy of this actually comes from parenting. It's like if your kids are crying, it's very easy to just snap at them and be like, "Shut up, what's wrong with you? Go to your room, whatever," right? But if you
Yeah.
stop and think why, like why is my kid crying right now? Is it because I didn't feed them? Or they pooped their pants? Or they fell down and hurt their knee? Like I have to first stop and think of why.
Uh,
And that doesn't naturally come to all of us. And a lot of times our instincts kick in and we're just like, shut up, right? But we have to stop and think about the why in all things in life. And again, I think that's part of that emotional intelligence. Trying to think, well, why is somebody asking me this right now?
Okay, so we must think about why. So, Matt, as we are wrapping it, you are a founder, not just for one business, but multiple businesses. So, can you share a story about maybe a major challenge that you faced as a founder, and please tell us how you overcame this challenge?
So I have a couple of those stories. In my first company, we actually had to fire my business partner. He was a CEO, he was the founder, and we ended up in a lawsuit with him. I won't get into the details of why and all the stuff, but we ended up with a lawsuit with a business partner, and that was terrible. Like I felt like, the only way I can. There's so much uncertainty every day. You're like, I don't know, are we going out of business? Like we had like a court injunction against us. Like it was terrible. Um, been through some wild stuff like that, and you just have to kind of persevere through it. It's like any kind of like major loss in the family or something almost. Like it was a terrible thing. But we made it through, and then we ended up selling that company and having a huge exit and all that stuff. A lot of companies fall apart because of these kinds of things, like weird founder dynamics, partner dynamics. And I would say the other one that's a really cool story is, in any time of industry and recession, big events that happen, there's winners and losers. Just like with COVID, there were winners and losers. Like some, maybe a lot of restaurants went out of business or whatever. But then online education things were big winners. Like there's winners and losers in all this. And so when Chrysler and General Motors went bankrupt in like 2008, 2009, I was selling software in the automotive industry. And we didn't know what was going to happen. We're like, oh crap, like our customers are going out of business. How many of our customers are we going to lose? Like what's going to go on? And then next thing we know, over the next 2 weeks, our phones are ringing off the hook and we couldn't sign up customers fast enough
Wow.
because all of our potential customers were trying to figure out how to cut cost. So they were spending before a lot of money on radio and TV and newspaper ads and all this stuff. And they decided, hey, we're going to cut all the budget from that and move to digital, move online. Let's do more online advertising. We had the perfect product for it. So, it's sometimes like when these big events happen, you have to figure out like, am I a winner or am I a loser? Like how do I turn myself into a winner from what's going on? And like COVID was another great example of that. Some people were winners and some people were losers.
Yeah, no, that's actually a very good example, and that'll lead me to asking the final question about your company, Full Scale. I see that it's a staffing company. Can you tell us more about what you do so that maybe if any of my listeners they want to connect with you, learn more, or do business with you, they will have a good knowledge about what Full Scale is all about.
Yeah, so I started full scale during the middle of one of my other companies because I needed to hire software engineers and they were extremely expensive. And a friend of mine had employees in the Philippines and said, "Hey Matt, you should try hiring some people over there. It's way more affordable to hire people and great people, great talent. You know, no communication issues. They're great to work with." And we ended up hiring some people over there, and it worked out great. Turned in an accidental business. Honestly, we hired 100 people in the first year. And then today we have 300 people. And yeah, we do software engineering for other companies. We have about 70 companies we work with that, a lot of them they need talent, they need smart software engineers, but they need to find people that is more affordable. Like software engineers can cost 200 grand a year. They can be very expensive. So we can help them save dramatically on that and scale up their team. We have over 70 customers that we do that for. And it's a fun business. We help people find the talent they need. We also create amazing jobs and opportunities for people on the other side. So it's very rewarding. It's very fun.
No, that's awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that. So finally, where can my listeners find you so that they can connect with you and continue to learn from your perspectives?
Definitely follow me on LinkedIn. I have about 70,000 followers on LinkedIn, and I post interesting things every day about software engineering and product and startups and stuff. Product Driven is my book and podcast. You can check that out at productdriven.com. And yeah, Full Scale, if you need help hiring software engineering talent, you can check us out at fullscale.io.
Thank you. It's been awesome talking with you, Matt. Thank you for coming.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right.